celebrating 20 years of possibility. Pilot Flying J and Halloran Hilton Hill present Anything is Possible.
Welcome to Anything is Possible. I'm Halloran Hilton Hill. These are great stories about great people whose lives prove that anything is possible. Bill Weigel is my guest. I have been so excited to sit down and talk to you, to meet you, to have you in this space, and to thank you for being a possibility person. Welcome to Anything is Possible.
Thank you.
I want to start with, and I hope you won't mind this, man, you look fantastic. And if I didn't see your bio, how old are you?
I'm 84.
Man, you look fantastic. You must take really good care of yourself.
I keep working.
Do you?
Yeah. If you keep working, why, you stay young. And your mind keeps going, so I don't have any desire to retire.
Well, you look fantastic. That name, Proverbs 22, verse 1, says a good name is better than great fortune or treasure. And the Weigel name goes way back. In fact, I had an opportunity to look at the book on your family, and I think that first Weigel in that book is someone by the name of Augustus.
That's right.
Weigel.
Augustus Weigel.
And I think it goes all the way back to 1847. 46. Take me back to the beginning of that name.
Well, he came across from Germany and landed in New York, and I think the plan was to buy a farm in Pennsylvania. But somebody from Tennessee hustled him down to a little town near Tennessee, can't remember the name of it, and he started farming there. And it was bad dirt and anything, so after about 3 years there, he came to Knoxville and bought a farm at the forks of the river, which was good bottomland and good farmland. And of course he had my great-grandfather. And when he died, my grandfather was the son of his son, and the two brothers came to Powell and bought, when he died, the farm was, they spread it out over the children, each got a piece, and his brother and my grandfather came to Powell and bought a farm there. And then when my grandfather's brother decided to leave, well, we bought his half of the farm, so we ended up with 500 acres in Powell, Tennessee.
Wow.
Back in 1921.
That's way back. So what were you farming?
We were raised, well, my grandfather was a truck farmer, raised vegetables and put it in a wagon and took it to Market Square, backed up and sold his vegetables. When my dad was 20 years old, he bought 4 cows. And finally, when I was a kid, I was born in that little 3-room log cabin as you're going up to the dairy. I could walk all over the farm from the time I was 5 years old. Nobody cared if you couldn't get in trouble back then on a 500-acre farm. But at any rate, when my dad bought the cows, well, we were half vegetables and half milking cows. So when I was a kid, we had vegetables. I was picking spinach right behind my house. That was not an all-dairy farm then. And then we kept buying more cows and less vegetables, and that's how we became a dairy farmer.
Tell me about your parents.
Well, my dad worked, he died at 62. He worked awful hard on the farm, and of course, my uncle, his brother, kind of ran the milk plant, and my dad ran the farm. So as a kid, I was in the farming business, and he always worried if it was going to rain, or get hay in the field. If it rained, that was bad. So he died early, but he worked awfully hard, and he was just a kind, wonderful person. I was very fortunate.
What about your mom?
My mom was from Harriman, and her father had a farm right now where Oak Ridge is, and they took the farm, and she had 6 brothers and 3 sisters. There were 9 in the family, or nine including her. And when the Oak Ridge bought the farm, well, he had no job. So they had so many children that she was the next to last, and the last was on the way. So she had to live with an aunt in Lenore City. So she was kind of raised by an aunt, but she would see them every summer, go back. So that's how they met, and her name was Lula Maud. She was named after 2 great aunts. When my dad met her, he says, "You look like a Judy to me." So she was Judy Weigel from then on. She lived to be 94.
Who are you most like?
Well, she was my inspiration. She kept me out of trouble. If I was hanging out with the wrong person, that person would just disappear. You know, at 7th grade, 5th grade, she got me to learn to swim. My dad was scared of swimming because he almost drowned in the creek right on the farm there, and got me into scouting. So she was kind of the person that got me. She said, "I'm determined you're not going to be spoiled." So I was an only child. She couldn't stop her bleeding when I was born, so my dad wouldn't have another child. So, and my dad worked so hard, and he was just a wonderful person. That's all I can say.
Possibility powered by Pilot Flying J, Covenant Health, Home Federal, and the Knoxville News Sentinel. Coming up.
I'm proud of 2 things. I'm proud of being an Eagle Scout. That's my biggest accomplishment in my life. And I'm also happy to be a veteran.
What were the values that you learned and lived by on the farm? Because I've interviewed a number of people that were raised on farms, and it's amazing the way they're able to leverage their values, and it makes them really successful in life.
Well, he worked hard, and the work ethic was a given. I guess you didn't have to make me work then. I enjoyed the working, and I was working with him all day when I was very young.
Let me pause there for just a second. I want to put a hook in what you just said, because I rarely hear people saying that. I hear people say, "I hate my job," or "I got to go to work." You just said, "I enjoyed working."
Yes.
Say more about that.
Well, just enjoy working. I started, I was picking spinach, and nobody told me to pick spinach. Everybody else was picking spinach, so I'd gotten a knife when I was 6 years old. Somebody gave me a pocket knife, and I had my bushel basket out there. And if you've ever tried picking spinach, it takes a lot of spinach to make a bushel. It just keeps going down when you put it on top. So, but I was always working, and I would help the drivers unload when I was 12 years old. They'd give me a quarter. You know, they didn't have to give me a quarter. I didn't ask for a quarter, but they'd slip me a quarter, and working's just fun for me. I still enjoy it.
So you said hard work, the work ethic was essential, but what other values?
Well, my mother was, her values were very high too. And she never had an education. She was went to high school, and that was it. But she was smart about keeping me in the right direction and helping me grow into, to meet people. I was out in the country, couldn't meet anybody or anything. I was raised with farmhands, children. All my young life, it was just me and the farmhands children. So I didn't know anything about scouting, so she got me to ride a bus to Knoxville at 12 years old. And the little bus from Powell was right behind the YMCA. Walked to Second Presbyterian Church, and there I was. Bo Schaefer was one of my scouts.
It's one of our great friends.
That's where Bo and I met, at Second Presbyterian Church at Troop 6.
Wow.
Small world.
So my life is about joy, enjoying your work, and your mother kind of aiming the arrow and then putting the tension so you could go in a different direction. You're into scouting, but then you end up at a really prestigious school, Macaulay, in Chattanooga. How did you end up going to Macaulay? Again,
I went away at 14 years old, and I didn't realize how kind my parents were to let me go. because losing an only child, you have to love somebody an awful lot to let them do that. And that was a turning point for me. It was a good Christian school. It was a military school. No girls, no cars, no way to get in trouble. And you studied hard, and athletics, you just studied and played ball, and that was it. Very simple life, but a good Christian school, and I've been fortunate.
Did you know what your interests were? Because from Macaulay, you go to Vanderbilt.
Well, I ended up at Vanderbilt because my dad finally got the dairy going, and we had home delivery trucks. And we were delivering milk. And when the housewife went to work after the war was over, well, we weren't going to have a business anymore. So when I was a senior at Macaulay, he said, "We're not going to make it in the dairy business. You ought to be a doctor." I guess he thought doctors would always have a job. And I didn't want to be a doctor, but I went to med school at Vanderbilt. So I got to Vanderbilt because he said, "Vanderbilt has a good medical school. You ought to go to school there." So that's how I ended up at Vanderbilt.
So you're at Vanderbilt and you're pre-med?
Yeah, I'm pre-med, 4 years.
So you're studying
organic chemistry,
P-Chem, physics, biology, anatomy. Right?
It was bad.
I was pre-med in college too.
Were you really?
Oh yeah, I was. And that was kind of the plan too. Well, if you're a doctor, you might be somebody one day.
You got a job.
Right?
You always got a job.
Well, you finished Vanderbilt though, and you decided to come back to Powell?
Well, I called him and I said, "Dad, I graduated. I can go, I'm going to graduate. I can go to med school anytime, but I'm going to come back and work for a year." He said, "All right, that's okay." And of course, I never intended to go back. I mean, that was my entree in. And at that point, I came back and worked on the farm. And again, at that time, we had no money because we'd lost our business. In fact, when I was 22 years old, I sold the last 2 routes we had, so we were out of business. So I started these little drive-through milk stores to try to sell the milk. And I did that for about 4 years.
How old are you at this time?
I'm 21 when I got out.
So you're 21. Mm-hmm. The delivery business has flatlined.
Gone.
It's gone. What does that do to your family financially at that point?
That was the problem. We had a 500-acre farm and no income. So my dad and his brother started subdividing our farm, and that's how we lived. And I didn't make a profit for a long time. My little drive-through milk stores didn't work. I was losing a little less money every year, but
they didn't work.
They didn't work.
Wow.
So after about
wait,
4 years.
Wait. This is just too good. So I love this. I love this part of the story. I'm getting a little amped up here. Yeah. I love people who, when something doesn't work, they take it and they learn from it and they don't give up.
Yeah.
Where was the first little drive-through?
The first little drive-through was Sanderson Road. It was one little lane. We rented a building and had one drive-through.
And people could drive up and get milk.
And we were selling milk, of course, but cheaper than supermarkets. And Kaz Walker was selling milk, and he didn't like the fact that we were selling milk below him. So he tried to get something through the state that would say you couldn't sell milk below a certain markup. So we hired a guy from Ohio to come down to fight that bill. And we won. And then that guy was supposed to come down. He was an advertising guy. And so when I was 21, I was going to get out of college in 6 months, so we hired him, and he became my guy, my mentor. He was 31, and I was 21, and he became my mentor and worked for me till he was 78 years old and passed away. I was fortunate.
So he taught you
I wasn't by
to
myself.
Market the business.
That's right. I wasn't by myself.
So here's what's interesting too about the dairy business. It's a perishable product.
Yeah.
So if I'm making beans, we can put it in a can. Yeah. It can stay on the shelf for however.
Yeah.
When you're making milk, the flow rate has to be.
You got to turn it over quick.
You got to turn it over quick. And you're saying the drive-thrus were not working.
No. So finally, I built a walk-in milk store. and we put in groceries. H.C. Hackney came and put in groceries. I didn't know anything about the grocery business. They had a big long thing of frozen food and all that. And finally that kind of worked. I got the feeling that maybe this is a little better. And then when I was, I guess the third annual, in 1964, I was 24 or 5 at that time, I went to the first annual convenience store convention in Chicago. And my old roommate was in the Navy and was up there, so I stayed with him and went to this convention. And I found out that they were open 7 in the morning, 11 at night, and I was open 10 o'clock in the morning for my housewife to buy milk, you know, and that they sold groceries and that they sold cigarettes. And so all of a sudden I've learned about the convenience store business. So I just kind of backed into it. Just good luck the whole way, good fortune the whole way.
I want to talk more about the development of the business, but I want to talk about putting your name, the family name, on the business. You know, in your space, you got all these different brands that are out there, and they're 7-Eleven, they're Quick Stop, they're, you know, yours is Weigel's. We started the interview talking about the power of a name. Talk about the name.
Well, we first, our dairy was named Broadacre Dairy. And when we started our stores, we had to do something, so we just called it Weigel's Jug of Milk. That was my little drive-throughs. And Weigel's Jug of Milk was just the name. I guess we didn't have any other name. We didn't know about names back then. We just said Weigel's Jug of Milk. We couldn't say Broadacre Dairy because that was a home delivery business and it was gone. But I had a dairy that was paid for. So you know, I existed during that hard times because I was single. I didn't have to make any money. I was 22 years old. So I could exist without a profit. And they could keep me in business by subdividing the farm. And so Weigel's just happened to be there, and that stayed.
What a great decision.
We didn't know any better.
I don't think you would need to know any better. So talk about your service in the military.
Berlin crisis, yeah.
What happened? Where'd you go? What'd you do?
Well, I was in the Air Force, and we were stationed in Germany, and about 25 of us were shifted to a little air base in Chambly, France, and a small air base there. And so it's right on the German border. So we were there during the Kennedy years when they had the Cuban crisis. In fact, while I was there, Bo Schaefer, my friend, was an MP in Metz, France, which is about 26 kilometers from my base. And I think we wanted the build-up to let them know that this wall was a problem. So we were called up and stayed from 1961, 62, and it kind of worked. And we got through the Cuban Missile Crisis. We bluffed. I mean, we said you can't do that. And that was the attitude at that time. So it worked.
You've got a real love for America, don't you?
Oh, I do.
Talk about that.
Well, I'll tell you, I'm proud of two things. I'm proud of being an Eagle Scout. That's my biggest accomplishment in my life. And I'm also happy to be a veteran. And we had one of our local heroes, Ryan Canals, die. He was one of the 13 that didn't get out as we were moving out of Afghanistan. So we had a memorial put on our store up in the Gibbs community. He was from the Gibbs community and went to school there. And we had veterans come from Florida, all over the nation, coming in bicycles for that memorial for this young man that died right before Afghanistan was turned over. And Mayor Jacobs was one of my speakers, and he had prepared for this speech, and he gave a wonderful speech about how a patriotic speech. And the veterans were in tears, I think, when he finished. And I'm just proud. I think we're an exceptional country, and I think being a veteran makes you have a little different attitude about things.
I'll tell you what I love about America. It is a place of possibility.
That's right.
And I think what makes America special is the big idea is you as an individual were created by God with unalienable rights. That government exists to support that.
Yes.
So that you could maximize your potential, not only so that you could succeed, but, and you know this well from scouting, the highest and best use of one's life is to leverage your success for service.
That's right.
Right, to serve others.
That's right.
America has a platform of institutions that allow for that. So you can graduate from Vanderbilt, decide to go back home, and you can try something.
That's right.
We have a structure where you can own private property and intellectual property, which creates value. But then because we believe in people and ideas, capital chases ideas. So you can capitalize.
I'm going to run you for president.
Let me run for president. So I see
step.
why you love that.
Yeah.
We got more to your story. On part 2 of my interview with Mr. Weigel, we'll talk about the building of the business and the legacy he wants to leave. This is Anything is Possible. Our guest is Bill Weigel.